Welcome to the Uplift, where we are uplifting our lives, uplifting each other, and uplifting our communities together. Thank you for joining myself, Sai Herrera, and Tessa Savala here, two women, two attorneys, doing it our way, and inviting you here each week to share in on the stories, advice, and life lessons we've picked up along our journeys that keep us uplifted, and that will hopefully do the very same thing for you. Now buckle in and let's get ready to be uplifted.
Hej, det här är Tessa och jag är här med Sai, den underbara människor i hela världen. Hi, this is Tessa. I am here with Sai as always. Looking forward to this excellent conversation we're going to have. And I'm just so happy to be here with her because she is amazing.
Well, I am always honored to be in your phenomenal presence, Tessa. Your energy just lights up my day. So I'm very grateful to have this time with you. And as always, really, really excited about the topic that you found us today so we can really get into, so many things that have been really holding us back in a lot of ways. And I hope that this conversation will be very liberating for folks.
Yes, and this is, as I mentioned to you when we started talking about the conversation, this feels like it came right out of my childhood and adulthood, and I don't think it's limited to kids, and I think it can continue on in people's lifetimes. And this is the issue. I was scrolling through the Instagram, saw a post from the brilliant, as always, Adam Grant, who wrote about the problem with mental health and the accelerating issues with mental health in this country is a direct result of perfectionism, which sounds like my childhood. But he, of course, has data which said that 307 studies of 83,000 students over 35 years, the growing pressure to be flawless is the risk factor for depression and anxiety. And then explains that this isn't just tech or related, that it stems from, there's parents that I remember and had that were like, why did you get an A-? Why wasn't it an A+? Or watching my brother's gymnastics coaches berate him if he made an error as opposed to trying to help him make him better. And I still see it in my mom today. Like, she favors this very militant view of the world. I'm just like, where did you come from? Because you did not grow up that way. None of your siblings are that way. The entire country of Sweden has laws against most of this stuff. So what's going on? But it's there, right? So it's like, do we see it? Is it something that society puts on us, our parents? Are some of us just born being like, I must overachieve and I must be perfect. And if I'm not, I'm going to say the meanest things possible to myself.
So many tough
and I
questions.
think we see it everywhere, like even currently, like in watching World Cup football, some coaches are like excellent and their players like adore them. And some of them are just like standing there screaming the entire time.
So true. Yeah. And the first thing it makes me think of like is the different styles of parenting. So when I was in undergrad studying psychology, that was one of the most profound things that I learned about. I think because I always think upstream and I always think like, development and how people got to where they are today. So the things they talked about were the different parenting styles, where of course it's like a big spectrum, but on one end is like the authoritarian parent, which is the one you're talking about, which, demands perfection, which, is screaming and angry and all the things. And on the other side of the spectrum is like the neglectful parent who just, has no boundaries, has no rules. Everything is just, flowy. And then there was something in the middle. I think that they called it being an assertive parent, something like that. And I learned a lot from that because, every situation that you go into, you have choices, right, about how to respond or how to interact with those situations. So I kind of feel like it's this interesting like mix of like temperament, right? Because we're all born with different temperaments, but we're also influenced by the world on what we think is effective. And so when I think about parents or coaches or anybody who is taking on this authoritarian nature or authoritarian technique,
Or
um,
bosses.
or bosses, of course, yes. I always think like, oh, what script do they have that says that this is going to get them what they want or need? And it could just be like, more temperament than thoughtful skill, of course. but but I still think that there is this underlying like belief system, right? Like I don't, and it might be a belief system, like for example, if your mother demands perfectionism, like you said, she wasn't raised like that, but something convinced her that that is the way, right? Whether or not
Mm-hmm.
she was like thoughtful about it, it's like something convinced her that that's how to do it. Maybe she was impatient, like I've seen people who just can't accept like universal timing. They're just like, we have to force it, and
Oh, she is definitely impatient.
yeah, and so
100%.
that so
Yeah.
that could be part of her temperament, right? But you know, whether or not like people act, logically in terms of, okay, I tried this and whether or not, it worked in my favor or I got the result that I want, everyone doesn't act that way, right? Like people are
Yeah.
not doing scientific experiments in that way necessarily. Um, so yeah, I feel like I can definitely relate to this. I'm firstborn. Um, I was raised very near poverty, and I feel like there was this thing, like many immigrant stories where it just feels like you have to better the
Mm-hmm.
generation in a way, like you have to do better, right? It's like a relay race and like it's your turn and you have to take us further type thing. And being firstborn, I think, is an interesting child placement where you take on like this pseudo parental type of um, positioning sometimes, and you just feel
Mm-hmm.
responsible. You feel more responsible. You're the oldest, right? And when you're the oldest, you're more like an adult than a child. The children that are younger, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
when I think about perfectionism, it's really interesting to me to think about like what comes from the internal, what's coming from the external, and like when does the external become the internal? When do we internalize, right? And for me, I feel like there's just so much coding that happens when you're young where it's like you have to do this, you have to do it right, or don't do it at all. Like just
Mm-hmm.
like even little things are conditioning mechanisms, right? And so I feel like as an adult, the tricky thing is like perfectionism is really sneaky because you want to do your best, which is another thing that I think actually contributes to perfectionism. Maybe like I'd like to explore that because you know I I think overall it's always good to do your best, but sometimes if
Your
there's
best looks
no
different
your
every
best
day.
looks different every day, and when people say do your best, it's like they don't tell you like do your best until it starts hurting you or your health, or like where's your healthy boundary for what
Yeah.
best is defined as, you know so that part I think is the sneakiest thing, is like we start internalizing all of these little cues that we have in society growing up and even as adults, right? Like if your boss is telling you like, I don't know, like, okay, well, you only have to do this, but then they're disappointed when you only do, what they assigned you to do or something like that. Like, I mean, you pick up on these cues. Like, we are very, very good at reading each other, actually. We pick up on a lot. So I feel like, yes, it's internalized, but I also feel like we really like we don't allow ourselves to separate, our expectations of ourselves from the world. It's like it's so expected that you basically perform for the world, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's especially true. I am also the oldest. I have a younger brother who's just under 2 years younger than I am, but I still had the same eldest daughter expectations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And still to this day as adults, like I am very conscious of the knowledge that I am the black sheep in the family, because I took eldest daughter, and by the time I reached my late 20s, I was like, nope, hard pass. Not my responsibility, never was
Not
my
my monkey, not my
responsibility.
circus.
Exactly. And I was like, I doubled down on that, because
Love
it's like,
it.
but I also noticed when I displaced that kind of eldest daughter requirements, I then put those onto myself, right? And I think it's a transition that I've noticed, that you went from like eldest daughter must take care of everything, you must perform perfectly, to I am not going to be the eldest daughter, but I maintained that perfectionism and loaded it down on me. And then whenever there was a mistake, it was, the meanest words that I would never in my life consider saying to somebody else, but I said to myself.
And speaking of that, that's one of the most, powerful things I remember from our early talks, where you must have caught me in some negative self-talk, because you told me, well, what would you tell your best friend? And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, damn, not that.
Yeah. Right. And it takes a lot to be conscious of the things that you say about yourself, whether it's like super harsh or even some of the subtle stuff where you like place limits on yourself through your language.
So how can we start to overcome that? Because like I said, it's a really sneaky thing where you might not even notice you're doing it, right? I mean, this whole thing is happening internally. It's not like you're saying it out loud to yourself. Or sometimes you do. Like whenever whenever I hear somebody say something negative about themselves, I make them say 3 positive things about themselves, because
I love that.
we know that like you're talking to your body, like you're telling your body what it is, how much value, this life has, how much worthiness you have. Like you're your own coach, basically.
Yeah.
So, you want to have a good positive coach, like thinking about the World Cup coaches, like you said, like, do you want to have a coach screaming negative things at you and making you feel bad and actually hurting your performance because now you feel all this pressure and you can't get into flow? Or do you want somebody who really loves you and supports you, right?
And the neuroscience says if it's the screaming, yelling, that's either your coach is doing, or your parent, or your boss, or you to yourself.
Or yourself,
your body listens and it stays in there.
So I feel like we have to break this down into like different things. So let's talk first about the external, because I feel like that's almost not easier, but like it's more tangible, right? So when you experience, that kind of like unwanted, unconsented projection of perfectionism onto you, what does it look like in these different settings for you, and how do you respond to, to protect yourself and to take care of yourself in those moments?
I am very good at building walls, barriers around myself, and have been since an early age. I distinctly remember being like 8 or 9, maybe younger, like somewhere between first and third grade. And I had gone to my dad to ask for help with some like math that I was doing on my own, because I was and am a nerd. And he was just very dismissive and very much like, you don't need to learn that stuff. And I'm like, okay. I realized then that he had no control over his emotions because he got very angry about it. And if he couldn't control himself, why would I bother to listen to his advice? And that stuck with me. And so I pretty much dismissed him starting between first and third grade and realized that he was of no value to me.
Love it. Love it. You got to consider the source always.
Yeah.
Consider the state of the source. I love that your valuation of like your whole like testing of the situation. You're like, okay, I see your state.
I guess I've had that viewpoint for a long time, looking back on it, right? Like, came to teachers who obviously didn't know what they were teaching, or somebody who gave really bad advice, or somebody who was very berating. I was just like, No. And so I just like literally, I could shut down and I could just nod along and I could pretend that I am engaged in the conversation while my internal monologue is, wow, you have no idea what you're talking about. You are causing so much harm to all these people. I realize now my younger self is, why are you such an idiot? I'm a little kinder now. And it's like, I don't dismiss their intellectual capacities. I just realize they don't know better to do better now.
Yeah. They're not
But really,
equipped. They're not equipped for the
right.
task. That's all.
And I'm like, I want to be optimistic that they can change and can do better,
Everyone can
and
learn. Everyone can grow. We
everybody.
believe in everyone.
That's correct. And so I think that's what I used was like, consider the source, but I was very dismissive of a lot of people as a kid.
How did that help you though? Like with, like in those situations, like were people judging you or trying to shape you in some way? Like, did they, I mean, in the example with your father, obviously he was telling you like, no, that's not important. What you think is important is not,
Mm-hmm.
you shouldn't be prioritizing this. Like, when you do that, when you're able to like notice like, oh, well, this person's, opinion is not, I'm not going to take that seriously. I'm not going to take that on. Is that something that helps you to not internalize, their expectations of perfectionism? And how do you see that in more subtle ways? Like when people don't come out and just, confront you about it or tell you you should or shouldn't do something, like what other subtle ways do you see it and how do you respond in those ways or in those situations rather?
I think I always still apply the consider the source, even when it's just subtle things like, oh, women shouldn't do that or women shouldn't do this, which we hear
Mm.
all the time, right? And I'm just like, no, you're cute, but you know nothing.
I'll give you that.
Right? And I think I am generally pretty good at like building some solid walls, but I would say 0.01% of the information can break through. And that stuff that does break through, like it could take me a year to get over some of the things that people say. And I like with a constant reminder of other people's opinion of yourself has nothing to do with you. But it's also hard, right? Especially when people say very caustic things to you. But that's mostly related to like, I think family's the worst at saying very caustic things. I've never really experienced that so much out in the wild, shall we say. But there have been some people early on in my career who decided to like give unsolicited advice that has been inane in my opinion. But I'm also like, as you get older, you realize, why are people giving unsolicited advice? And then you realize it's about them and not about you. So again,
Right.
consider the source. But I distinctly remember trying to get out of the College of Engineering in college because I wanted to graduate more quickly. And the dean of the College of Engineering, who did not want to let go of their like token female, was like, no, you don't want to be a lawyer. Lawyers are awful. There's no way you should do that. It's a horrible career. It's a horrible career. And I'm just like, why is that the advice you're giving to a student? Like, bizarre.
Yeah. And
Well,
like
and
for,
then
go ahead.
I realized at that point, because at that point when I was walking out of that meeting, I was like, okay, so this guy had a bad experience with a lawyer. And then I created this whole story around it. And I think I still do that, right? Like if you notice somebody who says something caustic towards you about your person or what you're doing, I now adapt that like, okay, well, this guy was having a bad experience with a lawyer who was going through a divorce at the time. He did not hire a quality lawyer. His wife's lawyer was really good and like attacked him for all his insecurities. There we go. Cause at that point in time, when I was in college, there was no gay marriage. So I think that's the story I made up. And I think that still helps in many ways, right? Like I use my creativity to figure out, okay, this is what this person is going through. And I attribute it to that because even if I'm incorrect, I know what they're saying has more to do with what they're going through than me.
Yeah. I love that as a
But it takes,
general rule too. I mean, I feel like you need like a shorthand to get to that creative place. So
Right. I
I
wonder
always,
how.
well, I think it's different for everyone. So like as you were saying, your shortcut is, like consider the source first, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my shortcut is always like, is this person trying to manipulate me? Because
Oh.
it's just because, well, a lot of people do. A lot of people try to take advantage of kind people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know
Mm-hmm.
that, and I've experienced it so many times that I just have to ask, even if the answer is no, this person might genuinely care about me, or this person's genuinely kind, or this person's genuinely concerned, or whatever. Like, I have to ask myself the question first. And I think no matter what your like shortcut is or your prompt, it's like you have to take a beat and ask yourself something before you just absorb whatever it is they're putting out, right? Because it might not be yours, it might be theirs, to your point, right? And so I always ask, like, is this person trying to manipulate me? and
I love
and then I
that.
do the same thing, really. I always tell people, like, if your brain always creates stories. People can't live without their stories. And so I'm like, if
Yeah.
you're gonna tell yourself a story, tell yourself a good one. Tell yourself a one that favors you. Tell yourself a story that's going to set you up for success, that's going to make you, feel better about yourself and not worse. My favorite thing to do now is like when people are trying to give me an insult, like a passive aggressive insult, I just turn it into a compliment and I'm like, thank you.
I love that.
I appreciate that. I'm like, I didn't
How
ask, but thank you.
how are the reactions? And what is the
They just look
best
so
reaction you've got?
confused. And I think that's the best reaction. It's so funny. I just laugh. Like it's just like play for me, like turning all of this serious thing into play, I think is the most fun and creative thing that you can do with it, because it's like if somebody is saying something negative to you, people can try to sugarcoat it and say like, "Oh, I'm just being honest," or "I'm
Ugh,
just worried
that
about
is never true.
you." Right?
That's
It's
never
it's
true
never
either.
true. And that's what I'm saying is like, is this person actually trying to manipulate me? Because if they weren't trying to manipulate me, then why are they telling me anything?
Mm-hmm.
If they're not, and when I say manipulate, I mean literally like, are you trying to get me to do something else that I don't want to do? Right. And I consider it like a consent situation. Like if you are trying to force me to do something with manipulative tactics, that is abusive, and you do not have my consent, right? And everything should be informed consent. We're all adults. We should be able to make up our own decision about our autonomy, how we use it, etc. And so the best reaction for me is just the pure confusion. I love it. I think it's hilarious. And
That
when
is
I see
fantastic.
when I see that face, when I see that expression on somebody's face, when I turn their insult into a compliment for myself, like they look at me kind of like I'm crazy, and I'm like, I am. I'm delusionally happy, and I love it.
It's the
Because I
best.
don't have to live in your world. Like I'm living in my world, and in my world, I love me. Like there's nothing you can say to me that is really an insult. There really isn't. Like you could say anything. You could be like, you're ugly, and I could be like, I love my ugly. Like, like there's just
Ah,
nothing that can be. I'd be like, thank you. Like there's so much self-hatred in the world is the way I see it. There's people with such low self-esteem. Um,
mm-hmm.
and one of the ways that people feel better about themselves is by putting other people down.
Yep.
And the way I see it is like, I'm just too high up for people to bring me down at this point. Like they can try, and I will smile at them from above. Like it's just not gonna happen. I'm not gonna let them, have that kind of impact on my energy. It's sacred, you know?
Oh, that is so nice. And I want to go back to the idea of consent because I hadn't thought of it that way, but how lovely to realize, I'm not consenting to your advice. I'm
Yeah,
not consenting to your opinions.
yeah,
I wonder
yeah,
if we could use that. I'm going to practice that in conversation. Like, I don't
yeah.
consent to this conversation.
Yeah, yeah, I love it because you are a free autonomous being, right? And you have
Right.
like every right to decide. what interactions you're going to have and which ones you're not going to have. Just like a sexual act, you have every
Yeah.
right to consent or not consent, right? And so I've been using this too. I think I was in a women's circle the other day, or maybe it was in the sweat lodge. I can't remember, but I think we were asking like, what are we releasing today? And I said, I am releasing all of the expectations that people have put on me without my consent.
That is so beautiful.
Thank you. And it felt really good to say out loud and to tell my body
Wow.
it's okay. It's okay to release those things. You don't need to hold on to them, because one of the reasons I think that we hold on to perfectionism is because it makes us feel safe. And I'm here to just say, I think it's a false sense of security, right? Like if you try to control everything, which is what perfectionism is, you have this sense that you are in control completely and nothing bad can happen if you're perfect, if you do everything perfectly. And that's just not true. I mean, your lived experience will tell you that, right? There are things that are going to happen that are beyond your control, and you have to learn how to flow with life. That's from my experience anyways, what I have found. What have you found in that regard?
I have found that I made a break with the idea of perfectionism when I decided to reread the definition of perfectionism
Mm,
and realize that that does not exist on Earth, right? Like
correct.
no animal is perfectly symmetrical.
Mm,
Birds come in all different sizes and shapes, even if they're the same species.
mm.
Trees, flowers, everything is different, right? So why are we putting these expectations on people to look a certain way or perform a certain way or achieve certain things that
You know what I think it
define?
is? I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but like
No,
as
no,
you
go
were
ahead.
speaking, you just made me, gave me an insight. So thank you. Like the insight for me is like it's all fear based.
Mm-hmm.
It's all scarcity mindset, actually, right? Because when you said the word symmetry, it actually triggered something for me, a memory of how like they did these studies. I don't know if you remember these studies. I don't know if they do them all the time, but I remember them back from like the 90s of like the symmetry studies saying that like, oh, if your face is more symmetrical, then you're more beautiful, meaning you're more attractive, probably to white males, I'm assuming, based
Well,
on
isn't
the
that all
studies.
the standards? Yeah. And all
Right?
the
But
medications and all the medical studies, all of it. Yep.
yes, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that at that time. I was a teenager in the 90s, so like I didn't know that. I just knew like science, which I respect science, is telling me that I'm only beautiful if my face is symmetrical, right? And it's like proven scientifically. And when I think about even that, like just the idea of like symmetry and beauty, and I think about beauty, it's like what is beauty? What is so important about beauty, right? And what I really come down to at the core of it is a fear of unworthiness.
Oh. And you know what my mind went to? And this is obviously reflective of the fact that I work in politics, was what beauty company paid those
Yes, ma'am.
researchers
Consider the
to come
source.
up with this study so
Consider the
that they would
source.
force
This
us to
is,
buy stuff.
I love how your brain works because it's so informed on how the world really is.
Yeah.
Right? That's the world. But like as a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know any of that either. And I love
No.
the upstream thinking. I love going back and back and back. And in politics, they always say follow the money. That's like
Yep.
the biggest phrase, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
100% agree. Like we have to consider the source and we have to consider the intent of the source.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually if somebody, like you said, is telling you something that you should be doing, they're usually talking about themselves. If somebody's telling you something that they can't do, they're usually talking about themselves. If they're
Mm-hmm.
telling you something that, you shouldn't like even dream of doing, it's because they have a limiting belief that they cannot get over, right? And that they think it's safer to not let go of. It gives them a sense of security. So I feel like there's a whole dynamic in perfectionism around control and around safety and fear.
I would add another category of people, those who give compliments that are very specific, but you could tell that it's what they want to be complimented on.
Ooh, that's so real. That's so real. Especially when people like play the reciprocity game. That's such a psychological play of like, I said something nice to you, waiting for you to say the nice thing back to me, because that's how, I guess human, dynamics are, or really social norms, right? Like that's a social norm. What do you do when you
But it's
see
also like
that?
this. I do not reciprocate identical compliments. And I
Yeah.
also, consider the source. Like eventually, if it's someone you're around a lot, you realize that person gives a very specific compliment to everybody because that person wants to be
Mm,
seen as
mm,
that.
mm.
But it's
See,
hard to like
yeah.
pay attention to all those details, right? Because there's
Yeah,
usually
that's a
so
lot
many
going
things going
on.
on. Oh
There's a
yeah.
lot of subjects going on, a lot of psychological situations going on. And that's why,
Hence, I say journal it so you can remember
yes.
it and
Oh,
let it leave your body.
so many things. But journaling, I wanted to say earlier, so I'm going to talk about it now. Um, I was going to say the exact same thing in terms of like, it's really hard to navigate the world with all of this in mind. And that's why I always, think our practice should be like just taking a beat. If you do nothing else, just like pause and let yourself like feel what is going on before you respond, if you choose to respond at all. And the longer you wait to respond, probably the better, in a lot of situations,
Not only for
because
yourself, but I
mhm.
think it gives time for reflection for the other person.
Oh, there's another trick for that too. So, so like I said, I like to turn my insults into compliments, right? And a gift that isn't received is still the person who was trying to give it to you, right? But but also another way to do it is to let the other person really think about what they're doing, which is really fun too. So like someone tries to say something to you that you should or shouldn't be doing. I mean, like you always say, you can do the lawyer thing and ask them questions about why they're telling you this or asking questions. I think the questions are harder for me. Like when people start asking questions, I actually feel more pressure to like answer because, and I think it has a lot to do with the perfectionism of it all, is like having all the answers is part of my perfectionism complex, right? So somebody asks me questions, I'm like, oh, well, it's this and it's that. And I want to respond. But when you turn it around on somebody and have them answering questions, it automatically makes them more introspective, right? And you're just like, well, what exactly do you mean by that?
I love that. I have always been fond of using silence
Mm,
to one's advantage,
yes.
and it can be very effective because it makes people uncomfortable, especially in the United States where everything tends to be, loud and a
Hmm.
lot of words
And
and a lot
fast,
of movement and
right?
fast.
Yeah,
Yes.
like fast, fast, fast. And I think it's more my nature than anything else, but like, my nature of like fastness and wanting to respond and defend and all of those things, like, I feel like law school, like, almost like, you know, I don't know, encouraged, enhanced, whatever you want to call it, that like nature in me. And so it feels like it's something I have to practice against even more deeply. And so what I have found is one tool against perfectionism is actually stillness for me. You talked about
Oh.
journaling, and I think it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
in the same vein of like, if you give yourself time and you give yourself solace to sit with something and just be with it for you and not for anyone else, not to perform for anyone else or not to respond or defend or save face or whatever for someone else, but just for you, it becomes so much more meaningful, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
you can, first of all, you have time to actually sort this stuff out. Like you said, it's complicated. Someone's giving you a compliment. Like, are you really psychoanalyzing them in the moment? Like, like you're just like, oh, nice compliment. What I've learned to do with compliments is just to be like, thank you. And then to really think about the compliment, because the thing you talked about earlier, where someone gives you a compliment and you give it right back, I used to do that all the time. Like that was totally my adopted practice of like, oh, I like your shoes. Oh, I like your glasses. Oh, like just immediately, like I have to look for something to compliment this person on because they gave me a compliment. Like I have to give it back, right? And now if someone says, oh, I like your shoes, I look at my shoes and I say, thank you. And then I might like say something about my shoes and why I love them or how that connects us
Oh,
somehow, or like just look for connection because I'm like, if you're really giving me a compliment, then that's very kind of you to do. And it's like an opportunity for us to be connected in some way. Like there was something that we found in common, right?
I often go with, say, I receive a compliment. I'm like, aren't you so thoughtful? Thank you.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean, that's a compliment in itself, just recognizing someone's
it
thoughtfulness.
is.
And it's still building
Unless
on
it's a
that kindness.
backhanded compliment, then
Mm.
they're going to sit and think with what they just said.
And see, for me, I don't know why, but I feel like, yeah, I feel like, until more recently, since, some growth, I feel like there were times where I really had a hard time figuring out, like, are these people giving me genuine compliments? Are they backhanded compliments? Are they, actually trying to get me to do something? Like, it was just a lot of feelings for me since I'm such an empath. I just was
Mm.
like feeling the energy more than hearing the words, I guess. And now I realize like I have to trust the feeling part of it because I would overanalyze it. I would be analytical about it. I would be in my head about it, I guess is what I'm saying. Like I would feel something going on, but then I would use my brain to try to like figure out what they really meant. And now I'm really focusing more on the intuition of it all to be like, first of all, do I want to know what they mean? But I'm also quicker about it because I'm just tapping into the intuition piece of it. Like if somebody says something that's a backhanded compliment to me, I used to be like, I don't even know what I would used to say. I used to just say something like, oh, thanks, or whatever. Like I would just try to like move on basically. And now I let myself feel it and I really listen to my body. And if I feel offended or I feel hurt, or whatever, and the person that I'm talking to or receiving this backhanded compliment from is someone that I love and like care about our ongoing relationship, like I'll just tell them how it made me feel, you
Good for
know
you.
and
I'm
if
so impressed.
well, if it doesn't, if I can make it so that it doesn't touch me at all, I can turn it into a compliment, then I haven't been hurt at all. But if somebody really says something that hurts me, now I just say like, that was really hurtful. That hurt me. That hurt my feelings. That makes me really sad to hear you say something like that about me, or that makes me feel bad. Like just the simplest thing that I can say at the time, just to let them know like this is the impact of what you're saying on me. So, like I can feel that. I know what's happening.
I think I might try that. Because my
Hmm.
usual approach, in a surprise to nobody, is emotional efficiency, which would be like, I'm going to not engage. Your words mean nothing to me. This
Yeah.
is about you. And then I move on.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
like the idea of actually like speaking up about
mm,
how I feel about it.
yeah. Well, it feels really good because it makes you feel like you're telling your body again, like coaching yourself, you're telling your body like your worth, your feelings are valid. Your feelings
Yeah.
are important. right? And you have every right to express them. Like that's how it makes you feel. Like when somebody really, I call them like the little jabs, like when you really feel
Mm-hmm.
that, if it's a relationship that you care to tend to, I think like that has been helpful for me to just be like, this is how that made me feel, and allow that person to respond, and don't, you know, I'm talking to myself right now, but like, don't try to make it more comfortable for them. Don't try to coddle them in that moment. Don't try to, do anything that's going to soften it, because it's okay to have that reaction. It's okay to let them know, and it's okay for them to sit with it and to have to grapple with it too.
Yeah. And that makes me think that is also part of perfectionism, right? Like we,
Mm,
especially as women, we're great to just let people say
mm.
whatever they should say to us. And I love that you have found a way to disregard that societal requirement and speak your mind about it. And I have just been like, here's my wall. You will never climb over it.
Mm. Well, I think that part is really interesting too, because, when you have a strong wall like that, your boundaries, right? You have your big, I always think of it as, for some reason, like a big stone wall around a castle, because I'm a queen, I guess. I don't
Hmm.
know.
I
But
love this. Yes, you are a queen.
I also wonder, like, is that wall keeping out anything that you need
Mm,
and would serve you?
interesting.
And I don't know. I don't know. I'm literally just
Right.
posing the question because, when I did my work with my curandera, she, very kindly started teaching me about boundaries, and I told her, like, I have such a hard time with boundaries, like I just feel like I have to help everyone, or respond to everyone in a way that I need to, or a way that they need me to, I should say. Um, and I'm like, I don't know how, like, I just have kind of this like all or nothing kind of nature, where it's like, if I'm your friend, I am like ride or die, bitch. Like, we're like, whatever you need,
Same.
anytime, like
Same.
100%, period. Right. And I don't
Hmm.
know how to do, like, or if you're my enemy, like, you're dead to me, which I don't have enemies, but because they're dead. Like,
Oh yeah, no.
you're,
I have boycotted a certain establishment
hmm.
for 15 years
Nice.
because of treatment that my husband received at that establishment. Hmm.
And that's what I mean. It's like you can't be bothered with that. They're gone,
Nope.
right? In your world,
Yep.
they don't exist.
Absolutely.
And that's my point, is like, that was my starting point of like 100% in or 100% out. And that reminds me of the wall that you're talking about, like the big stone castle wall, right? And what I have found is that it's really hard for me anyways to like operate in the gray, without having some gates and some nuances and some other things. And so that thing where I'm, like with certain people, I'm just like, yeah, like, I don't care at all what you think. Like, that's definitely still a thing. But I've had to find things in between, because, if I can't be vulnerable with anyone, or, with, at least with the people that I really want in my life and care to have in my life, like, how do you have real connection? It becomes very shallow for me. That's what I lose when I have like a strong, like, nope, cutting you off, you're done type of thing. And it's like, that makes sense in a lot of situations, right? But, it's like somebody you really, really care about, someone that you want in your life. Like, think about your life partner. Like, you could probably never put a 100% stone wall against that person, right? Like, you have to learn how to like be vulnerable, ask for what you need. You have to learn how to work through conflict, all of those different things, right? So for me, it very much depends on who, the relationship, whether I value that relationship, how I want that relationship to, grow or sustain or what have you. So I think it's just, we have all these different tools in our toolkit, and we get to use them for different things. But if we, it's like anything, if we applied the same tool to everything, it wouldn't work out every time, right?
Absolutely. And I always think that with my wall, the universe can send something through some of the pores because no wall is totally impermeable. But also, it's incumbent upon me to consent, right? Like, obviously, I will consent to my husband entering, but I don't have to consent to someone who's just not a nice person. See, I did my best not to like use a bunch of profanity there because I was thinking of somebody very specific. Yes.
Good for you. And yeah, I
Thank you.
100% agree. I feel like there are people who just don't. I mean, we've talked about it before, like your time being a luxury, access
Oh,
to
yeah.
you. Not everyone deserves access to you, period.
Yeah.
Or there are
And
different levels of access.
absolutely.
And some people get the VIP badge, and some people get general admission, honey, like they can't afford it.
Some people get to stand outside of the parking lot and
Period. The
and
tickets are
hear, but
sold
not
out.
engage. Yeah.
Or they
And
just
it's
don't
so
exist in your
important.
world, right? Like they just did you wrong and they're done. They're gone.
But yeah, it reminds me though of like childhood where parents who will be like, oh, well, go hug that person. Like, there needs to be consent in there whether or not the child
Yes.
wants to actually hug a person.
Yeah. And not only that, it makes me think of how parents sometimes think of children as a reflection of them and their perfection. So if their children aren't
Oh,
perfect, it's a reflection on them and their parenting, right? So even your parents, like when you think about how you're a child and you're absorbing so many of these cues and so much of this programming that is impacting how you literally think and talk to yourself today, a lot of that could have just been literally projections from your parents and other people around you that thought that you were a reflection of them. It had nothing to do with it.
do you think that, or have you experienced this, where you look back on your childhood and you can remember some of these events and you then realize, oh, that had nothing to do with me. That was my parents projecting upon their either good thoughts or their insecurities upon me. For instance, I no longer tell my parents any of my successes or challenges because they have no filter and it goes out to like essentially must be the entire world. Not literally, but that's what it feels like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, so many. I feel like I can't even, think of one specifically because a lot of things are running through my head right now. But yeah, I think another example I can see is more, I mean, just because it's more current, I think, like in the workplace, when people really think that, like, oh, you can't do that, you can't accomplish that, like, you cannot, there's no way you're gonna pull that off. And I've just realized, like, oh, you're not talking about me.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking to me, you're saying that you're talking about me, but you're truly, truly not. Like, you're talking about yourself. You don't see how you could do this. You don't see how it would be possible for you to pull this off. You don't believe in yourself. And I'm like, I believe in
Because so
myself
many
because I
people
know I can do it. Like,
exactly. And I think so many people are like, this is how it's always been done. Or you don't like a phrase that I sometimes like and sometimes strongly question is stay in your lane. Right. And I think there's times where it works, but other times, especially in work relationships, you realize that it is often rooted in the limitations that they put on themselves.
well, one of the things that I think of too, and I don't know where this is going to go, but a phrase that came up for me when you were talking about the other one is like, and I'm gonna, just, I'm going to ruin this phrase, but it's something like, like the tall weed gets the chop or something like that. It's something about a
Oh,
crop.
I've never heard that. That
It's
sounds awful.
I know it's something like that where it's like the person who, you know, rises above everyone else is the one who's going to get cut or whatever. And it's like a very like warning phrase. And I don't even know where I know this from. Like that's how, you know, ingrained it is. But yes, like it's something that I don't carry with me, but like in those moments where people are just trying to drag you down because you are on this different, you know, plateau, realm, level, whatever. Um, Sometimes I think about stuff like that where I'm just like, oh, am I doing too much? Am I going too far? Am I, you know, like one time someone told me literally like, well, people are very uncomfortable with, you know, the speed at which you're going on something. And I was like, well, I'm very uncomfortable with the slow speed that we've been going. Like, and, you
Really? So they
know,
wanted to limit your abilities?
literally. And again, it's like when people say stuff like
Really?
that, like that's a recent example of like that person was saying it supposedly on behalf of somebody else, right? Like it wasn't even from them. They were just like, well, some people are very uncomfortable. And I was like, let me consider the source. And I was like, oh, is it these people? Because these people have a very specific interest in slowing me down. And they were like, yes, it
Mhm.
is. And I was like, how did I know that? Right? Like, of course it is, because that kind of projection is designed for their advantage and for my disadvantage, basically. So,
Oh,
yeah, when people say things like that, or even when I experience this, like, I guess dissonance of like where I am in terms of like my perspective on the world and where someone else is. It doesn't mean that one is better or worse. It's like we're just literally in different places, right? We have different vantage points essentially. When I think about that, I tend to think like, okay, well, there's not necessarily a way for me to bring the person here to see from this vantage point because that vantage point that I have is very specific to my lived experience, right? And it's
yeah.
like that's just going to be the case. So I accept it, and then I recognize like again, like even if they don't intend to do what they're doing, their words are actually trying to limit my perspective. But what you know, right? Like if
Hmm.
you know it, you know it. And I feel like one of the things that we do with perfectionism is we try to convince ourselves that we don't know what we do already know. It sounds, it's a hard to say it in a way that is comprehensive or comprehensible rather. Um, but do you follow what I mean? It's like when you know something, you can talk yourself out of it, is what I'm trying to say.
I totally get that. I also made me think about how when people impose perfectionism on themselves or others, the mistakes get highlighted because you know what? Everybody is going to make a mistake.
Hmm.
And my advice to everyone is it is not about making a mistake. It is about how you fix it and how you move on, right?
And
Like
I've
leave that
just
past in the,
leave it in the past.
leave it in the past. Hmm.
Well, when you start talking about mistakes, it made me think about how like I have started to think differently, and I think it's because of you. Um, I have this voice in my head that says something about not having any regrets. I think that's from you.
It
And
is. I do not
when,
believe in regrets. They waste our
yes,
times. They steal our
yes,
joy.
exactly. And so when I even think about the framing of like, you're making a mistake, I have just like done my best to turn that on its head every time it comes up. So this is one of my tools of being a recovering perfectionist
Love that
is
expression.
is when I think like, oh, I messed up or I made a mistake. Instead of saying that, I just reframe it and I say like, there are no mistakes, there are no failures, there are no regrets. There are things that I did and I made my best decision based on what I knew and felt at the time. And now I
Hmm.
can reflect on that and I can feel the growth from that moment to this moment. And that
Yep.
thing that I did that didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to, that actually was an incredible lesson that helped me in my growth trajectory.
100% agree. Every incident that could be viewed as a mistake is a place of either learning or growth. Sometimes both, sometimes only growth, because your growth might be, well, I don't have a lesson to learn. I realize what I did, but I could be okay with that because we are not defined by our mistakes.
And I mean, it's also a humbling opportunity to understand, like you said before, it's not in our nature to be perfect.
Yeah.
It's not in
Not
our
anybody's
nature.
nature.
Like, we are talking
No.
about all the good things that we do to help ourselves do better, basically. But we do things that we're, probably not going to brag about all the time, I'm sure. Like, there are
Everybody
things.
does.
Yeah, but I mean, I love this space because actually, even then, it's like when you make, a mistake or you do something that forces you to grow through it, like, we can talk about that here. And it's not about judging anybody, especially not yourself. One way to get over perfectionism is to like look at, how things unfolded and what influence you had and see if you can have different influence next time. It's kind of like an experiment, like we talk about all the time. Like, can you just observe the results when you change behavior, when you change your influence?
I have noticed that I have done much better in my self-talk, being supportive and encouraging and not limiting and not berating myself. And that took a while to get there. But I've also noticed that when I do it, I congratulate myself on the good
Mm,
self-talk, right? Like, it's a
nice.
reward system I've created for myself.
Love that. Good cognitive behavioral stuff.
But it's important, right? Because you really have to practice and make it a habit to step away from perfectionism, step away from being so hard on yourself, and just be more accepting of the moment. Like, some days your best might look like achieving the highest peak that you wanted to achieve. And some days your best might be just walking a straight, flat line. And that's okay.
Or getting out of bed, or
Exactly.
showering, or
Yep.
eating,
Hmm.
making a home cooked meal, or going out to eat and treating yourself, or,
Yeah.
whatever, bringing yourself a little bit of joy and resting, not getting out of bed. Like, it could literally be the opposite thing. Like, it can be anything. So tell us a little more about your journey of your recovery to, or your journey on being a recovering perfectionist, I meant. How did you first even notice any negative self-talk? And how did you replace the negative self-talk with more positive self-talk in order to put this reward system in place?
Well, I had the sneaky approach of, even if I was vocalizing things to myself, I said it in Swedish, which
Mm,
99%, probably 99.9% of the people will not understand. So nobody ever heard it. But then I made the mistake of doing it twice in English, and I got the same reaction from two different people, which was, do not talk to yourself. Don't talk to my Tessa like that. And one was my
mm,
husband and one was a colleague. And I was just like, whoa, okay. Right? Like, I think it was their recognition of how like intensely horrible I was because I had done something that wasn't perfect on some made up list that I had just like,
mm,
created for myself, right? Like,
mhm.
I didn't, address this issue by noon on a Thursday when I said I was going to address it. And there was no timeline associated with it, right? Or, you know, I dropped a glass and broke a glass, things that happen to people every single day.
Yep.
It was, and that, I know and understand now is a reflection of childhood where those things were not tolerated.
Mm. So how did you
And I
get
think that
from talking bad to yourself in those moments to not? Is
I
it
just,
because those people prompted you? Like, that's not okay?
it made me aware of it, and then I
Mm-hmm.
became more conscious of how I was speaking to myself, and I kept
Mm.
at it. And then it was reading an article about somebody who said that they have a childhood picture of themselves next to their bed, so that every morning they wake up and they realize, I'm going to be nice to that kid.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that worked, because you realize then that, like, hey, those innocent pictures you see of yourself as a kid where you were just like truly joyful before the world like came in and stole some joy. I wanted to recapture that joy, because I realized, like, all these people around me were generally pretty miserable.
Mm.
And I don't want to be like that, right? Like, I have a fear of being ordinary, because I just don't like it. Like, I prefer being different. I prefer being the asymmetrical person in that study. I find beauty and joy in people who are different and interesting and aren't like everybody else.
Mm.
And maybe I've just been a collector of people and experiences that reflect that.
Yes.
But maybe also a rebellion, right? Like, I didn't like the American view of perfectionism and American ideals of how people should be. And I was just like, nope, not for me. And I'm going to rebel in my own quiet little way.
Mm. But it's interesting, even for someone like you who, really came with a different worldview, right, to this country,
Yeah,
it still sneaks up on you, right?
it
And
does.
you had to find a practice, like you had to find awareness and then you had to find a practice. And you're still practicing, I'm sure. That's why
Oh,
I'm
every
saying
day. Yeah.
we're recovering perfectionists because you
Yeah.
never, or I mean, I hope there's a day, but I mean, it's still a process, right? It's still a practice. Because there's so much there. There's so much underlying. Like when you said like breaking a glass was not, allowable as a child, like that kind of hit hard. I don't know why. It makes me think about like the little things that you used to get yelled at for, you
Hmm.
know, and how stupid
Hmm.
that is.
So stupid, right?
Right?
Especially when
Like,
you then see a parent like throw a glass, right? Like, it's,
period. Exactly
yeah.
that. And so it's like, as an adult, like looking back and being like, wow, like you would get yelled at for the stupidest things. You would be made to feel, or I was made to feel like, you know, somebody hated me. Like there's so, and I
Hmm.
mean, that's just as a child. It's like, and maybe it's particular to my sensitivities and as an empath or what have you, but I mean what I know from psychological studies is that like children, all they do is internalize, actually. Like they
Yeah.
literally are like, if mom and dad are fighting, like I must have done something wrong.
Yeah.
Or, like if I'm being abused, I must have done something wrong. And I don't know the whole science on like why that is, but I know that they've, documented that phenomenon. And so it just makes me think about, again, like considering the real source. Like when you say consider the source, usually you're talking about, or I've been interpreting it as you're talking about like the person that it's coming from. Now
Hmm.
it's working on a different level for me of like consider the source of like where did this script come from?
Yeah.
Where did this, negative thing I'm telling myself even come from? Like just the simple thing of like you were down on yourself because you broke a glass, like who cares? Like, but it
Right.
it really was something that like, is triggering a whole, you're basically internalizing your parents um expectations or what have you. I don't even know, I don't have the right word, but it's like you became your parents in that moment, punishing yourself.
Oh, yeah. And I have now, since I've like noticed these things, overcorrected so that when I hear glass break, my first question is, are you okay?
Mm,
Right? Like, it should be about the person. It shouldn't be about, and
correct.
whether or
The
not they're
thing.
okay, not
The
the
thing.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I always do that too whenever I hear something break. In restaurants, I like to say "opa" because
I
I feel like
love
it's so
that.
fun. But as a server, like, like that was such a big, oh my God, he dropped something, So I like to lighten the
Yeah.
mood in that way where it's just like, it's fun, but, but yeah, I wonder if there are ways for people to find that awareness that aren't at that level or that stage yet. And one of the ways I was thinking about it is just for us all to do the same for the people that we love, including ourselves. So when I heard you say that,
Oh,
these two people in your life said, don't talk to my Tessa that way. Is that what you said?
mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
thought I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was so beautiful because I say the same thing to like my sisters and my friends where I'm like, don't talk to my sister that way. Don't talk to my mama that way. Don't talk to my
Yep.
friend that way. Um, and I think if we made that kind of like the first thing, we could have a cultural shift of like when we hear other people talking poorly about themselves, having that practice, if you're a helper type like I am, like having that
Mm-hmm.
practice of noticing it when other people are doing it and you love them and stopping them and saying, interrupting that and saying, no, that's not okay. And then, as I've said, I like to also make those people give me 3 compliments about themselves to recover. Um, I have found that doing that for other people, and I just was watching or listening to something that was talking about how when you teach, you learn so much. And they were saying that
Oh,
when you are the eldest child, you actually have an intellectual advantage over your siblings, usually, like scientifically, they've shown, the trend. And they said that they think if you well, actually they said that they controlled for like income and socioeconomic stuff and all the other things, but birth order was still showing this advantage. And their theory is that it's because as an eldest sibling you have to teach your younger siblings things. And when you do that, there's a whole process where you're basically creating, deeper neural pathways or whatever in your learning because you're teaching somebody else.
fascinating.
hmm And so I like the idea of us all being coach and coached, if you will, or like, teacher and student, right? Like both, because we're all learning and growing.
Absolutely.
But if we can notice and apply some of these things to the people who we love most. And sometimes it's easier, right? Like, I want us all to love ourselves more than anyone in the world. Like, the Buddha said that of all the people that deserve your love, you are the most deserving.
So
Um,
important.
yes. And I think the way that we can get there sometimes is going to be the love that we have for other people. So I did this exercise in this amazing immersive that I was in the other day. And they told us to write down the 3 people in our lives that we just are gaga for, that we just like love with all of our hearts. So, like, if
Aw.
everyone can just think of those 3 people, right? Like, think about writing down their names and then write down like 3 reasons or 3 attributes of that person that you love so much, right? Are you doing it? Are you thinking of
I am thinking of it.
it?
And I'm realizing now how important it is to see the good in people, see the good in yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and engage in more joy, right? It's like
Yes, yes.
everybody should have a permanent era of seeking joy. And I
Oh, I
think
like
for
that.
me, it is the idea of seeing the good and realizing like who brings you the most joy, why you find the most joy in those people. Because I think
Well,
that helps you recognize your own joy.
yeah, absolutely. And honor your joy, right? Because
Oh
I think the
yeah.
other thing with perfectionism is that it has told us that we don't deserve joy until we are perfect, right? Like, I mean,
Yep.
that's literally what capitalism is built on. It's like, hey, you get to retire after you work for years and decades, right? Like, just work yourself ragged and put in every hour, right? Because you have to be perfect to get the life that you think that you will earn being deserving of, right?
Hmm.
Um, so in this exercise that I was just referencing, after they had us do that, write down the 3 people that we just love so much and the 3 things we love about each of them. They said, okay, now cross out their names and understand that all of the things that you wrote about them are actually things about you.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. And I thought that was
Full circle.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So powerful. And they said it's true because you're attracted to and you admire things in other people that you either like you have or that you think you wish you had. The reason I say it that way is because you might admire, like let's say I admire Tessa's incredible optimism, right? Um, and I think the challenge in seeing it in yourself is you don't think that you're doing it as well as Tessa. So you say, I love Tessa's optimism. But what you're really saying is like, I want to be a really optimistic person and I see her doing it and I admire that. I wish I had that, but you do have it. You have it in you. And the fact that
Yeah.
you love it so much in Tessa means that it's something that you value.
Yeah.
So when I think about
Giving me
perfection,
chills.
when I think about perfectionism in that regard, I just think about the fact that like perfectionism for me is something that I was told by a lot of different people in a lot of different ways in a lot of different times in my life, throughout my life, that that's what I was supposed to be. But when I listen to my body and I just love from my body because thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body, right? So like when I just feel love for someone else and what I'm gravitating towards, I recognize as things that I actually find important, that is actually more authentic to me. And I think, the opposite of perfectionism might just be authenticity.
I love that. I have, as a person who tends to lean toward emotional efficiency, I love the idea of
Mm-hmm.
reclaiming the word perfect. So I use it so often. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, it means imperfect, right? Because I do not believe perfect exists. So I just use it freely to diminish its power.
Love it. I do the same. I'm like, that's perfect. Everything is perfect. And it is.
Everything is perfect.
It's
Yeah.
perfectly, it's funny. I think I wrote a paper when I was younger called Perfectly Imperfect. I want to say,
Love it.
and I've seen it in other places now, but, yeah, I mean, it's perfect for you, like you say,
Exactly.
right?
Like allow perfectionism to be subjective.
Yes, and it is subjective. I think that's the other thing is like,
Absolutely.
we can totally take the power away by recognizing that that is actually the reality. That is not like, that is truly the reality. Like not, let's try to like, adopt this philosophy of it. Like that's literally the reality because there is no such thing. Like you said, you already did the research. Thank you. The research is in and there's no such thing, right? So if somebody is, you know, pushing you to be something that they call perfection, it's actually really, I mean, and I'm not saying all manipulation is bad, but it's really a manipulation of you to to mold into the version of you that they want you to be.
Ugh. And let me just say as a blanket statement, be yourself
Yes.
on your own terms.
Yes.
Even if
Yes.
that, and if there are people who get angry about that, that is because they were taking advantage of you somehow or
Period.
benefiting from you somehow.
The people who don't want to see you grow are the ones who really like the version that you are now or that you were,
Hmm.
right? Because, like you said, they were taking advantage of it. They were benefiting from it in some way. And so that's why my question is always like, are you trying to manipulate me? just checking, because again, back to consent, like you should be an autonomous being in the sense that like you're free, you're liberated,
Absolutely.
you get to choose, right, what this life is and what it isn't, and who you interact with and don't, and all the things, right? Like, are there things that we can't control? Sure, but like you should get to consent. And so I really love that we've come to this place of like perfectionism is not even a real thing. It's a fallacy. It's a tool, actually. It's a tool that people use to manipulate us into doing things and being someone that we did not consent to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Absolutely.
it's the opposite of informed consent.
I think we should say it 1,000 times over.
Yeah.
You have the power to consent to everything.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And maybe that's it. We all need the permission to know that perfectionism does not exist. Perfectionism is how we choose to define it. And we are the only ones who gets to choose what that looks like.
Absolutely. And another word that was gifted to me in this immersive was the word of sovereignty. And I think it applies here. You are a sovereign being. It's like a country being sovereign. You get to decide. If you want to interact with, I don't know, NATO or whatever, like as a country, you can do that. But you don't have to, right? You can do whatever the hell you want.
Exactly.
This just gives me big, like, my grandma Vicky Texas vibes. Like, she's such a good, she's just such an incredible example of a Texas woman who would just be like, the hell with them, and do whatever the hell you want, like, type stuff. And I just love to invoke her in those moments where I feel like people are trying to be oppressive in ways. And there's no doubt in my mind that perfectionism is another tool of oppression. I have, found that insight through this conversation. So thank you for that gift.
Thank you for sharing that story about Grandma Vicky, because, your personal hero.
Yes, absolutely. And that's, I think, like even thinking about my relationship with her, I think like if somebody really loves you, just like you said, you're already perfect for them, So if somebody's trying to tell you that you're not perfect enough, that means that they're just using that tool against you, right? They're playing on your insecurities of you're not being enough. And at the core of all of this is the lie that we are not worthy just the way we are.
Because we all are worthy exactly as we are.
Yes, you're born worthy. And when you talk about, little baby Tessa pictures, oh my God, it's gotta be so cute. Like when in the world would we ever, as decent people, at least, tell a child that, like, that negative self-talk is so brutal. But the truth is like she learned it from something, from somewhere, from somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And, she has you now, though. She has you, and she can be safe now because she knows the truth that somebody really loves her and genuinely cares about her just the way she is. She was born worthy, and she still is, because that little girl is you.
What a nice warm hug. I hope everyone listening also got a nice warm hug out of that, because you are worthy.
You are.